Be formless, shapeless, like water. You put water into a cup, and it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, and it becomes the bottle. You put water into a teapot, and it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow and crash. Be water, my friend. The following story is one of a potato who abides by such an ideology. He is a pugilist of the highest caliber, and while others of his ilk may opt for such things as weapons, he prefers to get down and dirty with the only weapons he'll ever need, his mitts. This potato revels in adversity and gets up close and personal with those who would oppose him. He welcomes violence and invites all of those who would partake in his brutal blood sport to simply catch these hands. This run is the tale of the brawler, a man of few words and many fists. This class gains an innate plus 50% attack speed bonus with unarmed attacks and begins the run with 15% dodge. The downsides are as follows: minus 50 range and minus 50 range damage. The former of these downsides is partially an upside, as the decreased range will serve to increase his attack speed in a roundabout way. The less distance melee weapons have to travel, the less time they have between attacks. So there's really only one mechanical downside to this class, and it's negligible. The decreased damage is almost wholly irrelevant, as the brawler spits at the notion of using a ranged weapon. So the decreased damage from such armaments mean nothing. The shop aspect of this run is where the Bruce Lee quote really comes into play, because you kinda want a bit of everything. You want attack speed and melee damage for the offensive suite. Simple enough. But due to the fact that you're exclusively in melee distance with your foes, you're going to want to take a myriad of defensive options. Dodge so you don't get hit, armor to lessen the hits you do take, health to allow you to take more hits, and either health regen or lifesteal to recoup the damage from the hits. The innately high attack speed makes lifesteal the preferred mechanism of recuperation, as the more attacks you make, the more opportunities you will have to proc the lifesteal. In Wave 4, I caught a stray. This is the first inkling I have as to how irritating the projectile enemies are going to be. Typically, a ranged class would dispatch these shooty lads with relative ease, but since the brawler does battle in a more personal capacity, they are often the last enemies to catch these hands. In the next wave, I begin to form a plan. Seek and destroy the shooty lads before they can shoot. If the shooty lads die before they can shoot, then their long-range attacks are all but moot. Wave 6 comes and I put this strat into further practice, punching the projectile peons before they can propagate their pervasive prerogative. Egg time, and I come out of the gate swinging. I break an egg before another one hatches. The spawn becomes acutely aware of the taste of a knuckle sandwich before falling quickly. The eggs pose the same issue as the projectile lads. I just can't run across the screen quick enough to smash them before they hatch. It matters not, as any freshly spawned large lads awaken only to be immediately beaten to a pulp. Wave 8, and I begin to struggle a bit. Speedy large lads rush me down, and I dispatch them with alacrity. But, while dealing with the brutes, I catch some irksome hits from the projectile peons on the back line. This wave is not my finest hour, and were it not for the fact that I had invested some points into dodge chance, this might have been the end of the run. The horde on wave 9 spawns and immediately begins rushing me down. I wouldn't exactly say that I struggle with this wave, but I do take some damage from a hit here and there, and begin to become a bit concerned with my lackluster defenses. My health pool is at least partially empty throughout the entirety of Wave 10, and the concern for my well-being continues to grow. I deal out a reasonable amount of damage, but I also get hit quite often, even with my dodge chance at over 50%. In the shop, before Wave 11, I push these concerns from my mind and buy some items that increase the enemy count. And there's a voice in the back of my mind telling me that maybe more enemies is not the best path to victory. My bolstered defenses work well enough in Wave 11. I take some damage, but the newfound lifesteal lets me quickly replenish my lost life and I end the wave healthy enough. On to my first horde wave. I typically prefer these to the boss waves as they are generally easier, but my crowd damage is a bit lackluster, so I'm unsure of how I will fare going into this gauntlet of flesh. The outcome is mixed. I hold my own, but do take some damage. This is also the advent of a new strategy. I found that kiting weaker enemies until they are all clumped up and then wading into the fray to dispatch them all in one fell swoop is a reasonable course of action. Pre-Wave 13, I get a pivotal buy, Rip and Tear. This item makes my fallen foes have a 20% chance to explode on death. The explosion scales with melee damage and comes at the cost of crit chance. This will theoretically increase my ability to dispatch large swaths of enemies, as the explosions can cause a chain reaction as enemies die and explode, causing other enemies to die and explode. Rinse and repeat until there are no more enemies. In theory, at least. The chain reaction does not happen in Wave 13, as about halfway through the wave, I take an uncomfortable amount of damage and flee in fear. I get dropped to as low as 2 hit points and spend the rest of the wave running around the edge of the map, relegated to the life of a corner cuck. On the back of this pitiful display of cuckoldry, I head into Wave 14. Beforehand, I purchase a Power Fist. It's like a normal fist, but power. It has a 25% chance to explode on hit at this rarity. Hopefully, this will give me a little bit more crowd damage going into the horde wave. This wave isn't too bad. I spend most of my time awash in a sea of enemies, only recognizable by the explosions surrounding me. This mosh pit strategy is reasonably successful. I beat the wave, sustaining several scratches but nothing overly concerning. Going into this next wave, I maximize my dodge chance and acquire another Flaming Fist. While it's only a small increase in dodge chance, it seems to be well worth it, as in this wave I take only a negligible amount of damage. Afterwards, I upgrade my Power Fist into the most powerful of all fists, and head into Wave 16. The story of this wave is rushing down the buff givers. These little losers will hang back and make normal enemies more threatening if given the opportunity. So, I don't allow them that luxury. As soon as I see them spawn, I make a beeline towards them and pummel them before they can do their thing. It's Wave 17, and I'm just now facing off against my first boss. I'm offered a silver bullet in the shop beforehand, but I'm too broke to afford it before this boss wave. The RNG god taunt me as I head off to face the Chungus. The wave starts off and I bum rush the Chungus. The sound of flesh hitting flesh echoes through the arena as my mitts do their thing. The boss is down to a reasonably low amount of health before I realize that he is dropping eggs, so I leave the Chungus for a moment and attempt to smash some of the eggs, only to have them hatch right in front of me. The spawn catch some hands and go down. I reset my sights on the boss, felling him shortly after re-engaging. For my troubles, I'm rewarded with this cool leaf. It grants additional sustain across several metrics. It is quite good. Very little of interest happens in waves 18 and 19. I punch and get punched, but I eventually prevail. Just more of the same until I arrive at wave 20. The Chunguses spawn and I rush them down. My Fists of Fury are dealing a decent amount of damage, but I'm also getting hit. I circle around the two bosses for a bit, punching as fast as I can, and eventually one falls. The second Chungus still lives, and I set my sights on his hideous form. I do a bit more damage before making my retreat, grabbing the box dropped by the first Chungus to refill my health. Now topped off, I sit back and wait for my time to strike. Before long, I see my chance and go for it, rushing down the final boss as he catches my final fist of the run. I stand victorious over those who would oppose me. Knuckles bleeding from the plurality of punches dished out at my desire, I revel in my conquest. Many have tried to slay me this day, and they were all met with a similar fate. These fools believed themselves to be my better, but were shown otherwise. In the end, all they could do is catch these hands.